Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Alt StarCraft Novice Arena, and in this round 2 game, we will be on MLG Shakura's Plateau with a pink Zerg xKawaiiMoMox and a red Terran KillerGB. With me, I have, of course, as always, the wonderful, awesome Nak. How you doing, Nak?
Doing real well. Thanks for having me, NJX.
Sound very, very enthusiastic.
Oh, well, I love Zerg vs. Terran, actually, and I do love this map for Zerg vs. Terran. It tends to lend itself to a minimum of 2 base play, which I love. There's obviously the possibility that we see some early aggression out of our Terran, but, what I'd like to see, and I think is probably the best play on this particular map, is to go for an expansion around the 5-minute mark. Maybe even sooner, but because you can get away with it with the high ground into your natural there. But right now he's just walling off. But yeah, so what do you think from our Zerg player, Kawhi?
Well, honestly, it could be anything. He could go for some, well, it wouldn't exactly be extreme early aggression right now. He has just popped out his second Overlord, so he could go for 14-14, or he could go for a hatch first. 14-14 being 14 gas, 14 pool, for those of you who don't know.
And that is a Zergling speed rush. So basically what you're doing is you're rushing into the Zergling speed. It does get your Zergling speed out just about as fast as you possibly can, without hurting your economy. Isn't that right, NJX?
Exactly. It's a highly well, it's speedling, right? It's a speedy attack that doesn't cost you way too much, which is a nice thing. But he is appearing to go hatch first here, which means he's going for a slightly more economical build, perhaps. His pool should probably go down shortly afterwards.
Right. Yeah, always a good key to remember if you are taking a fast expansion to follow it up with your spawning pool. And I actually dislike what he did here. He did take his spawning pool a little bit too early. He really should have got out 2 more drones there at least, maybe even 3 before he went ahead and tossed down that spawning pool. So he actually cut his economy there a little bit, and that's something that you've got to be careful of as Zerg. Your economy is really what keeps you in the game. You want to try and keep it ahead of your opponent. And if you check that units tab right now, it's about dead even. And you got to remember that Killer is going to have his orbital command here in just a few moments. So
and that orbital command, oh so lovely for the mules.
Yep, there goes his first mule.
Yep, mules are wonderful, just so you know.
Right now, Killer's going for double barracks here, so do you think that he's going to put on some serious aggression here, or is this just kind of a standard 2-gate, 2 racks type of opener for him? No, there goes a third. Wow. I don't know. I'm a little bit mystified here, NJX. It feels like a little bit too early of a commitment here, unless he is planning on going for an all-in type of build. So if that's the case, I expect to see at least 1 more barracks go down within the next few moments.
Well, he could go for a bit of a marine rush, which is actually surprisingly effective at this level against Zerg. One thing to note, though, however, Killer has misclicked onto his refinery and only has 2 harvesters in his gas. That is a big problem, because you're losing a lot of gas income there.
Right.
With 1 less harvester. So hopefully he notices very shortly, because that's actually a bit of an issue. Meanwhile, back at xKawaiiMoMox's base, speed is metabolic boost is about halfway complete. And nice to see some nice low energy on the queen. I love to see low energy queens.
Yeah, that means he's keeping up with his inject cycles, and your inject cycles are the key to making your army production and economy production work as a Zerg player. Now, he's got a decent amount of Zerglings here, but he did see a push coming out. Here comes those 4 Marines. I don't think these Marines are going to fare very well. I don't even think he needs the spine crawlers, quite honestly, but he did put down a couple spines. But this queen and a couple links should be able to clean this up with no problem.
Easy peasy right there. And now he has a nice little defensive front with those spine crawlers. They are increasingly useful to have there. And, ooh, I like this. Not very many low-level Zergs really bother to do this. Creep tumors.
Yeah.
They don't really bother to spread creep. I'm actually quite impressed that xKawaiiMoMox is actually doing this.
Yeah, and I was actually casting the game the other night, NJX, that you just still loved it. This guy literally, in the first 15 minutes of the game, he covered the entire map with creep, and all the way up to his opponent's base essentially, and because of that, he couldn't get dropped. Every single bit of movement out across the field he saw. It's just so important as Zerg to gain that map control. And we see, I mean, I have to give it to Kawhi here. He's actually doing a pretty decent job maintaining that map control. You can see him holding his own Naga tower in the center of the map and starting to spread his creep out. And I love this play from him quite a bit.
Indeed. There's a bit of an ongoing joke with me and Aegis about how Protoss has easy map hacks. Well, Creep Tumor essentially is a map hack as well, if you think about it, because it gives you as much vision as you really want as long as you spread them.
Right.
So, you know, they're very, very useful because you can see big pushes like this one that's coming across the map, even if you're not holding control of those towers. Oh, those poor Zerglings.
Well, you know, I mean, you want to be aware of that. You want to be aware of what's going on your mini map. And so he should have been able to back those guys out, but is now going to have to make do with what is just now a third spine crawler going down, and needs to get a couple lings out. He's got 24 in production. You can see those guys starting to pop here. I think he's going to clean this up just fine, though.
Oh yeah, these spine crawlers and this queen worth their weight in, well, minerals.
Yeah.
So he's now got a nice little hefty army of Zerglings, and I'd actually like to see him move out a little bit with this, because it's only one bunker at the top of Killer's base with only a single Marine in there. What do you make of that?
I feel like it's a mistake. I really do. I mean, I feel like now with speed being out on the map, he needs to be concerned for Zergling run by as he's moving out yet another force here to its death. He's kind of being, I think, a little frivolous with the army that he's producing, and I don't expect for this push to make much difference at this ramp either. I mean, he may even get, if he's lucky, he'll get a kill on a spine crawler, but quite honestly, it doesn't look like he will.
I would love to see him use a transfuse, but he doesn't quite have the energy for it, so never mind. Yeah,
he's been too busy injecting larva, which is quite honestly is the better deal there. But great defenses here from Kawhi. And Killer, he's got to be a little bit more careful. He's throwing away a lot of units here, a lot of army units, and it's going to start to come back and bite him. Yes, he does have a pretty decent economy. I mean, you check at the units tab, he's at 25 harvesters to 35, but obviously the mules are going to make up a pretty big difference there, but not quite enough, to be honest. I mean, I feel like Killer is making a couple mistakes here that are going to start to put him in such a bad pattern that losing this game is going to be imminent.
What do you make of this single Hellion that just popped out?
You know, one Hellion, quite honestly, this stage of the game isn't going to be useful, especially now that speed is out on the lings. Speed lings are actually pretty decent against Hellions. Once they got that speed out, it just makes that big of a difference. And I mean, there's not going to be any upgrades on this Hellion. There's only one, so he's not going to be able to one-shot. You know, they won't be able to one-shot the Hellions, and so he's just going to die here. And I feel like this is a great defensive position here for Kawhi with Banelings coming out. He's going to get a great surround on these Marines, and quite honestly, he doesn't even need a Baneling to kill these guys off.
Not at all.
Yeah.
XKawaiiMoMox has actually set himself up quite nicely here. Killer just keeps sending little tiny forces across the map and is really just throwing away units rather than focusing on making a larger army. I'd also like to note that XKawaiiMoMox is working on his +1 ground carapace and his +1 melee attack. So,
right.
And he has an infestation pit on the way, which lends me to believe he's going to try to go up to Hive Tech shortly, or maybe he'll go Ling Infester. There's
maybe.
No Roach or anything.
I think it's a great combination versus what he's seeing. I mean, he's seen that there is some mech out on the field. So he probably knows that he is going to have to worry about tanks here in just a little while. Tanks are coming out on the field. We also need to get the siege tech here for Killer. But, Kawhi now with his third base should have enough production, especially if he takes these two more gas here at his third, to be able to produce plenty of infestors and banelings and zerglings, and then he should be able to, crush his opponent as soon as he decides to push out here. Killer moving out across the map here yet again, and he's only got one Marauder in this army. I mean, yes, this is a decent amount of Marines, but at this point, he needs to have medevacs in this army or tanks sieged up next to this army, and here he is just throwing these guys away. I mean, that's a great surround here from Kawhi once more.
he hasn't used a single Baneling yet. All of his kills there have been with Zerglings.
Yeah,
So
poor guy.
Those Banelings are going to come in pretty useful later, hopefully. And I also like that, might add on to xKawaiiMoMox's builds, what he's doing here. He also has a macro hatchery. Little tip for those of you who are having difficulty spending money if you're a Zerg player. If you find yourself floating a lot of minerals, drop a macro hatch. It's an awesome way just to get extra units so you use up that money faster.
Yeah, most pro players toss down a macro in most of their games. Obviously, it's situational, but in most of their games, especially if they're going relatively heavy on the Zerglings, you'll see them have a macro hatch before they take a third. And it's an extremely smart thing to do. But I have to mention that Kawhi, with the stronger economy, is actually doing a pretty decent job keeping his minerals low. I mean, he's floating more than I would like to see, but all in all, I'd say Kawhi's really showing a lot of strength here tonight, NJX.
Oh, he is, definitely. He's doing quite well definitely. He's Baneling Infestor at the moment with Burrow, which just completed.
Oh yeah.
We have Centrifugal Hooks, just about complete. Zerg melee attacks and Zerg ground carapace both level 2 are on the way. He's making some nice little what's the word I'm looking for? Additions to his army. Oh shoot,
Ooh.
That's not good.
Good
Nice
scan.
By Killer. That just about probably saved his poor mineral line.
Well, that actually tightens the gap here between these two players quite a bit. Infestors are a very expensive unit. It takes a lot of teching to get there. I mean, you got to get up to your lair. You've got to get out the infestation pit, etc. And getting upgrades for him also is not cheap. So I like that from Killer. He was very mindful of an invisible unit there moving underneath his feet. Getting the scan out, and here he is going to try and deny the third. I like this play. I just don't know if he's got the right amount of units here. And Kawhi needs to spring into action. It looks like he is going to do just that.
And now hopefully some Banelings are going to get used, and wow. That was just devastating for Killer.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
his medevacs go home.
He didn't quite get the kill on that hatchery. It does require a lot of micro in those situations. I mean, with that small of a force, he needed to be microing like crazy to make that happen. And here, I think this is a great counter attack for Kawhi. He's going to kill off all of these Marines there fairly quickly. The tanks are blasting these guys to bits. He should have waited for his Banelings, but all in all, this was a great attack, and he cleared out all but one of those tanks.
Oh, definitely. And at this point, if you look at xKawaiiMoMox's minerals, his lings are basically free to him, so he can just make more of them if he really wants to.
Right.
He is missing a couple of inject cycles, though. I would like to see him pick that up.
Yeah, he really needs to do that. His inject cycles were so good early game, and you can see him now starting to fall apart a little bit on the inject cycles. And that's partially because he's got more to deal with. He's got 4 hatcheries, 4 dedicated injecting queens, and yes, it takes a little bit more work to make it happen, but you just have to do it as Zerg. Missing those inject cycles means you do not have larvae, means you do not produce lings, means you do not produce anything, and yeah, it's brutal. He's getting his spire out too. What do you make of that, Injex?
Well, it's a novel idea. I'm just not 100% sure. Oh, well, maybe he can because the Marines are only +1.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like he's gearing up for his late game, and I mean, getting out a Greater Spire here, I think is in good time, and if he takes another base, he should be able to produce some Broodlords.
Yeah, he could also get some Broodlords would be a good idea, but he's going to need a ground unit that can really defend them as well, because as we know, Broodlords they do deliver a lot of damage, but they can also be very fragile.
Right.
So.
Well, Infestors, those are great. They can hold the Marines in place. Obviously, the tanks won't be much trouble, so. Well, I mean, we'll see, but right now, Killer is ahead in the supply count, and like you said, Njex, this comes down to inject cycle problems. Kawhi not following through with his inject cycles that we've so loved and we're so impressed with their early game. And at this point, I mean, he's also floating a lot of minerals. And check the units tab. Look, he's got 24 larvae unused right now. Wow, I don't know. I guess he's waiting for his Greater Spire, but you can't wait that long. All Killer has to do right now is move out. I feel like Killer's got a strong enough force where he could push out and win this game.
May I also just thank Blizzard for actually adding in larva to the tab. That's
yeah,
awesome.
That was awesome.
I've yeah. So yeah.